Alright, this is John Colo at DiscountJuicers.com. We have another exciting episode for you. In this episode, we're going to do a head-to-head comparison of the best two commercial vacuum blenders out there, including the KUVINGS CB1000 and the TRIBEST DYNAPRO DPS 2250. But before I get into that comparison, I have to share with you guys this amazing announcement. KUVINGS is having their Spring Black Friday sale. They are offering 30% off from April to May 11th. This is the lowest price they give all year. Normally they only do this one time a year during Black Friday. So if you guys have been waiting to buy an amazing KUVINGS product, including the KUVINGS Auto 10 Plus, my favorite juicer of the KUVINGS is the Auto 10 with hopper extensions, and you can have a monster size hopper larger than any other hopper on the entire planet. And you could save $231 on the Auto 10 Plus or $219 off right now until May 11th. But the reason for this episode is because I know a lot of you guys have been waiting to get the blender that I use in my home, which is the KUVINGS CB1000 commercial vacuum blender. This is the top of the line vacuum blender that you can buy for your business or for your home. And right now, only until May 11th, it's 30% off, the biggest discount you guys are ever going to get on this machine. That's $600 off, guys, right now. I don't want you guys to miss it. And I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for this episode where I compare this against a Dynapro so you can finally make up your decision on which commercial vacuum blender to buy. In any case, to get this amazing discount, make sure you guys use a coupon code DJ30 at KUVINGS USA. I'll put the links down below. And definitely make sure you use my coupon code DJ30. This will let KUVINGS know that I sent you, and they'll share me a small portion of the sale. And I'll get the credit. If you use any other coupon code, I won't get the credit. So I appreciate when you guys use my coupon code so I can continue to make these unbiased educational comparison videos and unboxing videos with you guys so that you guys could buy the right and best equipment for you. So now let's get into the comparison of the KUVINGS CB1000 and the Dynapro DPS 2250. These are both commercially certified ETL or NSF equivalent sanitation certified machines for your commercial juice bar, restaurant, cafe, or what have you. That being said, of course, many people just buy these machines at home. And what I want to tell you guys straight up, if you guys are looking for a commercial machine, right? My personal opinion, if you work in a fast-paced environment, front of the house use only, right? This is the only machine you should be using for front of the house because it works fully automatically and a lot faster than the Dynapro, which you'll see a little bit later in this episode. So once again, now is the time to buy $600 off on the best front of house. And if you have more time and don't mind waiting a little bit, then the Dynapro might be good for back of the house, but it does take longer to pull the vacuum, which is my main, dislike about the Dynapro. That being said, we're going to go dive deep into the nitty-gritty of the pros and cons of each of these machines because I have been using each of these machines for several years now. The Dynapro originally came out in 2021. If you guys want to see my original unboxing video on it, link down below to that. If you guys want to see my original unboxing video on the KUVINGS, link down below to that. That originally came out in 2023. After 2021, I started using the Dynapro a lot, but that was pretty much until the KUVINGS came out, and then pretty much this is the only machine I personally use in my kitchen almost on a daily basis, and blending has never failed me and always does an exquisite job. That being said, some of you guys may not have the money to drop on one of these machines, so yes, of course, the Dynapro definitely is a solid contender and one of the better vacuum blenders out there. All right, so let's go ahead, dive deep into the comparison. All right, first up, the price comparison. Of course, the KUVINGS is about 3 times the price of the Dynapro. So, they both vacuum blend, and if you just are going for the price, then of course, the Dynapro makes more sense. That being said, right now, because the Kuvings is like $600 off, that makes the price only like 2 times the amount of the Dynapro. So of course this is probably the best time to get in on the Kuvings to save literally a whole price of the Dynapro, $600 off right now with that coupon code DJ30 at kuvings.com before May 11th. After May 11th, you guys could use a coupon code DJ. That'll save you guys 10% off the Kuvings. And of course, I have a coupon code DJ also for the Dynapro at TRIBEST.com. Once again, links are all down below to save 10% off the Dynapro at any time. If any of their better promotions are available on the Dynapro, my coupon DJ will also give you guys the best deal at the time. So while these are both commercial vacuum blenders, they're both vacuum blenders, but they're a little bit different. I mean, first off, I want to share with you guys what vacuum blending is. For some of you guys, you've never heard of it before. So what vacuum blending is, it's not a brand new type of blending or anything. It basically just takes a traditional blender, right? And then it is specifically built for removing the oxygen out of the blender before you blend. This is very critical if you guys are blending things like berries and high antioxidant leafy greens and other very nutritious foods. If you guys are just making margaritas in your blender and you don't care about the oxygen or the nutrition, because I don't think there's a lot of nutrition except calories and the alcohol, then you won't need a vacuum blender. But this is for those of you guys that like have a garden, grow your own food, go buy fresh greens and vacuum blend them because you want to drink a green smoothie because so-and-so says they're great for you, which they are. You know, when you traditionally blend, you can lose 2 to 3 times of some of the oxygen-sensitive nutrients. In addition, more importantly, besides losing nutrition, you're also adding significant amount of oxygen to your blended mixture. When you're done and you drink it, right, now you're swallowing all this extra air. A friend that I gave a vacuum blender setup to told me, like, John, the biggest difference I've seen after vacuum blending is that I no longer get bloated after my smoothies. So if you guys no longer want to bloat after your smoothies, invest in a good vacuum blender. Of course, vacuum blenders also keep a much better color and have a much better texture, and more importantly, can be stored longer than traditional blends that are adding a lot of oxygen that causes nutrients to degrade. There's a published study where they said don't blend bananas with berries or, you know, cocoa flavanols because you really won't get the benefits of the berries or the cocoa flavanols because of the polyphenol oxidase that is increased through the oxygen. And when you're removing the oxygen, that polyphenol oxidase enzyme is strongly inhibited. And I've known this for many years, since I think 2017, when I first saw vacuum blenders at the trade show. Link down below to that video if I remember, for when I first learned about them, and ever since I've been educating people about them, and probably the #1 educator about vacuum blenders out there, because not many people know about them and people don't think it makes a difference. But every time I give an in-person demo and I give people non-blended, vacuum blended, and vacuum blended, and they drink both of them and compare them side by side, like, everybody in the room always says, wow, the vacuum blended tastes so much better. I never knew it could be so much better. You know, because you guys are online watching this on YouTube, I wish I could give taste tests for every single one of you, or invite every single one of you over so I could give you guys taste tests, but unfortunately I'm not. But I would say that there's definitely a difference in the flavor, the taste, and especially the storability. So you guys could make batch prep smoothies and then store them for up to 5 to 7 days. And I'll have links down below on how to store your smoothies, fresh juices, or other foods on some videos I made with vacuum sealing and using the most powerful vacuum pump. So yeah, that's the basics of vacuum blending. It is literally a step above. I mean, if you've gone from a household blender like an Osterizer or Waring standard blender, and then you went to the Vitamix, and you're like, whoa, the Vitamix is game changing, right? It's about as big of a jump to the next jump to vacuum blending, and it makes me really sad that companies like Vitamix doesn't have a vacuum blender. Blendtec used to have a vacuum blender until there's a hostile company takeover, and then that project was nixed, right? Because vacuum blenders will prove to those companies, in my opinion, that they've been blending wrong for the last 100 years since blending has been invented, because it is doing so much damage to the food. I have published studies where I go into more of the data. Actually, there's a really good published study that actually uses the KUVINGS CB1000 in the study to show that vacuum blending is superior over traditional blending. All right, now that I got you convinced that vacuum blending is surely the way to go, which one of these commercial vacuum blenders do you guys get? So let's dive deep, head to head, get into the comparison right now. So first up, besides the price, I want to talk about the warranty. This is very important consideration, especially if you're a home user like me. If you're a home user like me and want the longest warranty, the way to go is the Dynapro. This has a full 15-year warranty for home users on the motor base as well as the parts, which is an impressive warranty. This is even longer than the Vitamix and other major brand blenders out there. It has the longest warranty in the industry. So really, that's the way to go if you're a home user. You know, on the Kuvings, they have only one warranty for home or for commercial use, which is basically 3 years on the motor and 1 year on all the parts. That being said, I've been using this machine straight since 2023, and it has never failed to blend properly for me. I've never had an issue where I've had to send it back and get it repaired, right? That being said, on the TRIBEST, if you are using it commercially, not for the home like in a restaurant situation, then they only give you a 3-year warranty on the motor, which is the same as the Kuvings, but they give you a 3-year warranty on the parts, whereas on the parts of the Kuvings for commercial use is only 1 year. So in all cases, basically, the Dynapro wins for length of warranty if you want to feel secure about your purchase. All right, next up, let's talk about the power and the motor specs. You know, these are just numbers on paper, and to me, they don't necessarily mean a lot because the higher the numbers, like the higher your thing is when you're trying to brag, right? Just because there's a higher number doesn't necessarily make it any better or worse. You know, to me, it comes down to how does it perform, which I'll be testing 3 different performance measurements, demos later in this episode. So the Dynapro has a Swedish-made motor that is rated at 2.5 peak horsepower. Meanwhile, the motor in the Kuvings, which I believe to be is a Korean-made motor, is 3 peak horsepower. So clearly, if you're just looking at the specifications on the paper, the Kuvings takes it at 3 horsepower. Next up, very important to me, is RPMs, right? The faster the blade spins around, the more cutting it could do in the same given amount of time. And Kuvings claims their blender runs up to 37,000 RPMs. You know, the Dynapro is not too shabby because it's still running at 32,000 RPMs, which is like 5,000 less. And both those are still a very high number and can fractionate and grind up your food into small particle sizes to get the job done. That being said, if you're just looking strictly at the RPM, then the Kuvings is better. That being said, right, the faster the RPM, the louder the machine is. So we'll be doing some empty sound testing in just a little bit to see how loud these machines are when running them empty. And of course, on that one, I can tell you who's going to win. The Kuvings, because it has a full, actually automatic sound enclosure here, whereas the Dynapro is just exposed to the air. That's why I'm telling you guys, if you guys want to have front of house blender, right? That means it's in the front where the customers are. The Kuvings is the way to go. It's fully automatic. It'll stay more quiet. It also vacuums in like 1/4 of the time, will blend more quickly and be done and raise itself up and let you guys know that it's ready to pour out into your customers' glass to serve them. Now, the other thing to know is that in the Kuvings, this is a pro and a con. The vacuum pumps, because there's more than one, are built into the base. So this requires if they fail or need servicing, you need to send the whole machine back in a Kuving. So you definitely would want to save the original shipping box so that this thing does not get damaged when shipping it back. I would hope that companies that would have vacuum pumps built into the machine would actually have some kind of module that you just unscrew and then just drop the whole thing out and drop a new one in if it should need to be replaced. Because if the vacuum pumps go out, then guess what? Your vacuum blender no longer works. So that's a risk with the Kuvings, especially because the parts warranty is only 1 year. That being said, I've been using this since 2023. I haven't had any problems, with the vacuum pump failing at this point. That being said, over on the Dynapro, right, the vacuum pump is separate, right? So should this fail, and honest with you guys, the vacuum pump has been known to fail on the TRIBEST. I get customers every once in a while, John, the Dynapro blender you sold me, the vacuum pump failed. And I'm like, okay, contact TRIBEST. They're aware that this has happened in some batches of vacuum pumps, and they'll replace it, right? So that's the good thing, that it's separate, and they can replace it. You can replace it. The bad news about a separate vacuum pump is that it has batteries. And you know, most vacuum pumps these days have some kind of lithium batteries built in, which actually could explode. But these just use AA batteries. So I have some actually Harbor Freight Edge, Thunderbird Edge batteries, some good batteries, AA batteries in there to make this pump work. And it uses like 8 of them. And you know, I'll tell you guys, this thing, in my opinion, eats batteries. And as your batteries get weaker, right, the pump doesn't seem to pump as quickly or as strongly. So I do have an adapter available. I'll post a link down below to that video so you guys could actually, you know, plug this into the wall so you could always have 100% vacuum strength if that is important to you. That being said, in this demo, I'm going to just test it with AA batteries, which is what most of you guys would probably use anyway. So yeah, separate pump versus built-in pump. Which one do I prefer? You know, there's pros and cons to each of them. You know, this one hasn't failed on me, and I prefer the ease of use of the built-in vacuum pump because it's just one less thing you need to deal with. Because that extra thing of using the vacuum pump and then waiting it for it to vacuum, you know, may make you to not want to vacuum blend. Whereas with this machine, you press literally a button, it vacuums, it blends everything, and then it raises up the lid, and you're done. And it's completely amazing how automated this is. That's why this one, if you guys are looking for the ease of use and the simplest vacuum blender on the market, right? I haven't found one any simpler. This also auto releases the vacuum for you, which can be a problem, especially for some people based on feedback from older people, you know, that have issues taking off the lid because it's actually can be vacuum locked on there if you're not using the right technique. All right, next up, let's go ahead and compare the carafe size. So the carafe size on the Dynapro, you guys can see this is basically a short and squat carafe. It is rated at 64 ounces. Meanwhile, the carafe over on the KUVINGS, let's go ahead and get this raised up. One touch automatic raise. We can take out the carafe on this, and this one, although it is the same, you know, as high, as tall, right, it's a lot more narrow. So this one is rated at 48 ounces. So you guys can see basically the difference in these. And if we just show you that, guys, the tops, big difference. This one's a lot more wide and fat. All right, so besides the size and capacity of the carafes, I want to go over the carafes with you guys real quick because this is where there's some significant differences, right? The Dynapro is marked up to 900 milliliters or about 32 ounces. You know, I think they should mark it up higher, but I don't know why they only marked it that low. Meanwhile, the KUVINGS is marked up to 48 ounces as max or 1400 milliliters as max. That being said, the carafe is larger, but under vacuum blending, you never want to fill it too high because then you risk sucking liquid up into the vacuum pump, and literally you can ruin the blender, although there are features to prevent that from happening. So that's very important to never overfill your container when vacuum blending. If you guys are looking to blend large volumes at once, then clearly the Dynapro is the way to go because the KUVINGS vacuum blender carafe is much smaller, which is a con because it's smaller, but it's also a pro because it's actually going to get better blending action because there's a lot shorter base and there's going to be a lot less liquid in there to run through to get hit by the blade. You know, originally I was like not the fan of the small carafe, but I've learned over time that actually, hey, when I make a little bit less smoothie, I drink a little bit less smoothie, right? I didn't really need these large smoothies that I used to make in the olden days. You know, I can't drink that much anymore, and I'd rather have a little bit smaller carafe. Serves me better. Also, it pumps out the oxygen, you know, more quickly because there's less volume inside. And when I do large batches, like I make a soup, and it's like I use 4 carafes of, you know, that are mostly full to blend up my soup, and I basically just do 4 batches in a row, you know, and just split a big batch into smaller ones. So you just got to blend a few times instead of just one time. And then actually I find when I'm blending smaller batches, it blends a little better because if you have a lot of liquid in here and a few nuts and seeds, those nuts and seeds may every once in a while kind of get underneath the blade and get chopped up. But when you're doing more often of smaller batches, those nuts and seeds have a lot more blade contact time, which is critical for ideal and optimal performance. So, you know, just from going off what I've observed when using these blenders, right, the KUVINGS grinds up the food you put in there to a better extent than the Dynapro, but we're going to go ahead and see if that's true, because that's what I believe in my head when we do some tests in a little bit. Next up, one of the nice things on the Dynapro, it has this little star here. So this is a star It's blue right now, but depending on the temperature of the carafe, this can change color. So this is the raw temperature indicator. If it's blue now, if it turns, I think, white color, then the temperature exceeds 118 degrees, the raw food temperature. That being said, I would just say get a temperature gun, because it's ultraviolet UV temperature gun. It's gonna be a lot better. Other things, more importantly, for the carafe on the TRIBEST, there's a little vacuum valve here. You have to, lift up on the valve as you lift up on the lid, because if you just try to lift up on the lid while the valve's down, look, it just basically wants to go back down in there. It's like it's vacuum sealed shut. So basically what you do is you have to hold this up while you lift up, and then you can lift off the lid. This is not very hard to do, but some people may not be super agile to do it. I don't have a problem. But that being said, on the KUVINGS, all you do is you just release these latches and you lift it up. There are no valves in this lid, because the way they valve this is actually built in the machine. It puts on the vacuum and then auto releases the vacuum, so that every time you're ready to take off the machine, you just lift this lid off like a normal blender. Whereas with this one, you have to pull up this tab and then lift up at the same time to get it off, or it can be problematic. So yeah, that being said, comparing the lids, once again, this has a valve. This doesn't. This does have a piece that comes out, so you could actually non-vacuum blend and then put the stir stick in there to use as a tamper. You can also add ingredients when you're blending, when you're not vacuum blending. But this is an additional seal to clean on this and make sure that it's fully sealed before you blend. I would say there are definitely less nooks and crannies in the TRIBEST lid to get in there and clean easily. One of the big pain points, every time I use the KUVINGS, I'm not the biggest fan of this lid, because it's like stepped. There's different steps, and there's all these different places that my expensive blended dressings get stuck, and then have to try to scrape it off with a spatula, and it's kind of a pain of what, right? So yeah, not the biggest fan of this lid, or cleaning the lid specifically. Better fan of the Dynapro lid. Of course, the gaskets on both these lids are removable to get under there and clean, which you should do every once in a while, maybe like once a month, depending on what gets under there. If you get too much debris under the gasket, then it may fail to hold a vacuum when you're trying to blend, all right? So yeah, on the lids, definitely give it to the TRIBEST. A little bit easier to get in there and clean, more symmetrical design than the squared off lid of the Dynapro. But I like on the KUVINGS that, there's no little valve to release, just lift off the lid. Super simple, super easy. All right, next up, let's go ahead and compare the carafes. So both these carafes are BPA free. When I lift up this carafe, it's actually heavier, even though it's smaller, it's heavier than the Dynapro carafe. That's because this is a lot thicker plastic, guys. A lot thicker plastic. So what is a thicker plastic? Number one, it's just going to be more durable. Number two, it's also going to help reduce the noise from transferring, because the plastic is a little bit thicker. One of the things I don't like about the Dynapro, thinner plastic, but also it has these flutes that, once again, when I'm trying to spatula out dressings, gets in the way to spatula things out. And I do like on the Dynapro, it's basically a square carafe with a few lines in the carafe. There's two lines that basically help agitate. They're a lot easier to kind of get your mixture out of than the flutes on the Dynapro. So if this matters to you, I think of all the things I say in this episode, you got to figure out what are your pain points, what upset you the most about your previous blender, and and what features should you look for in the new blender. So definitely. I love a more square design. Also, too, this to me is easier to pour, because I just pour out any of these corners, and then of course the Dynapro has the nice large pour spout to pour out. Next up, let's go ahead and look at the blade design. Right, the KUVINGS uses a unique blade design that I originally saw on the Blendtec blenders invented by Tom Dixon, who was the first guy to show me the power of vacuum juicing when vacuum blending. But yeah, this uses a standard propeller style blade, and this uses a standard more star style blade. Which is better, which is worse? Well, there's a lot of factors that go into the blade technology. This has wings on it. The blade can be blunt or sharp. This one's a bit sharper than, say, Blendtec blades, so it performs a bit better. But, on the 4-side blade, there's, you know, more kind of blending points. But the other thing to notice, besides just the blade, is what's the reach of the blade, right? The reach of the blade on the Dynapro, you know, it still like doesn't hit the edges. I mean, there could be like as much as an inch gap if it's on like, or a 3/4 of an inch gap. And that means food could get stuck in that corner and then will just never get hit by the blades unless there's enough liquid in there. Whereas, you know, the propeller style blade, you know, reaches a lot closer to the sides than the Dynapro. So it's hard to just say, oh, the star blades are always better than the propeller. It really depends on the blade design, and more importantly than the blade design, also the carafe design, which, you know, the Kuvings has a, you know, innovative carafe design. So the Dynapro, just the carafe is a standard carafe. It's basically flat on the bottom. The blade is raised up a little bit off the bottom. It's basically flat, right? So this is just how traditional blenders are made. Every blender has a flat bottom on the bottom of the carafe. Meanwhile, if you try to look at the carafe on the Kuvings, right, you guys could see, you know, this line here, and then it kind of goes up. And if I turn this, you guys can see it's kind of lower here. It goes down, and then it kind of goes up. This is what's called an asymmetrical design. The asymmetrical design means it's not level on the bottom. It's more like a skate park, you know, where you go down the skate park and go up the ramps and go down the ramps and all these things. That's kind of what it looks like on the bottom of this carafe. It's basically uneven. So what happens because it's uneven, right, this causes more kind of, you know, clashing of the food to kind of get into the blade and get all hit and stuff. So this basically means less dead spots, and your food will kind of interact with the blade more often than not than, say, the Dynapro. So for this reason, once again, the performance should be better when we do our tests with the Kuvings because of the unique blade that reaches further, as well as the asymmetrical or uneven bottom on the carafe. So yeah, these are some new innovative features, and at first I'm like, you know, this is maybe a gimmick, but the longer I use this, I'm more convinced that this is really the way, and that's why this is the machine that I use personally in my home. And of course, yeah, the weight. I mean, I had a lady once that like, John, I want the lightest carafe because I don't have a lot of strength, and to me, both these carafes are not that heavy to lift, but definitely this one is a lot more solid, a lot more heavy, you know, than the Dynapro. I will say on the Dynapro, I have had a few bearing and blade assemblies go out on me due to leaking. So, you know, how you could test this if you just basically put water in here and then you run the vacuum pump, and if you see bubbles coming up from the middle, that's basically you have a bad O-ring or seal in the bottom, and then, you know, Dynapro or TRIBEST has been replacing those under warranty, of course. Now, the issue is if you have the Kuvings, and that happens, right, you only have a 1-year parts warranty. I haven't actually had to take apart this blender carafe yet and remove the blade, and haven't had any leaks on it yet either, since using it since 2023. But that could be an issue, and should that happen, then you're probably gonna have to buy a whole new blade assembly and bearing assembly with all the seals built in, whereas, you know, TRIBEST has offered those at no cost to my customers in the past. So once again, you know, pros and cons, and hey, that warranty could come in handy because, you know, Tom Dixon, you know, would only warranty his carafes on his vacuum blender for 1 year because he knew that the vacuum pressure exerted would cause the, you know, seals to fail in a shorter or longer amount of time, depending on how much vacuum you're pulling, and then more often, how often are you pulling the vacuum. All right, a few other points I want to make on the carafes real quick. The Kuvings actually has these built-in magnets that you wouldn't even know if they're there unless I told you right here and right here. Basically, this senses when the carafe is in place, and if the magnets do not line up, then the blender will not turn on. This is a safety feature. Meanwhile, the Dynapro has a similar safety feature. Instead of the magnets, this uses a more traditional kind of like little pieces of plastic. You know, I haven't had any of these break off on me, but these are could be more problematic because there is like a little gap in here where food particles could get if you're kind of like not super neat and tidy. So I do like the bottom of the Kuvings, but better than the bottom of the Dynapro, okay? I guess next up, I want to go ahead and get into the motor bases. You know, once again, we talked about the 3 horsepower versus 2.5 horsepower. We talked about the 37 32,000 RPM versus the 32,000 RPM. Both these are electronic, and they each offer you guys some different, ways you can control it. So both of them have a speed control. The Dynapro is a more traditional speed control with a little knob you can turn to turn on and turn off, and you just press it to go. It won't go right now because I don't have a carafe online. You also have this little knob here, the smaller knob, which can control how long you want the blender to run. So basically you could set it to like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, press start, have it run at full speed, it'll run for that amount of time, and then automatically shut itself off, which is amazing. Then you have three different program function buttons. You have a standard blend button, which will basically blend it at high speed for a set amount of time. Every time you press the button, it'll run for like 30 seconds. So if you want it to run for a minute, press the button twice, it'll run it for a minute at high speed. You then have a combo mode, which then means it'll basically run it at varying speeds during the 30 seconds, or if you press it 2 times for a minute. And then you have a pulse button that you press the pulse button, it'll basically pulse, stop, pulse, stop. So, if you guys want to do vacuum juicing, the Dynapro is ideal for vacuum juicing because of this pulse button, so that you don't have to do it manually. Link down below to my video on vacuum juicing in the Dynapro and how to do it. So yeah, that's the setup on the Dynapro. You have manual controls plus, a timed automatic controls and some 3 main presets. If you guys just want to pulse it, you can just press this button and then let it go. And then that essentially will do a pulse for you. Meanwhile, over on the KUVINGS, there's a few different buttons. You have a quick start button, which you could press. That quick start button will basically run program 1. So you could have 5 pre-programmed cycles. They have, I think, about 35 pre-programmed cycles that you can choose from, or you can program your own cycles and vary the speed and RPM and time of the blender yourself. So I've actually done 2 pre-programmed cycles. One is button number 4 today, just so I could do a vacuum only test without blending. And then I've also programmed button number 5 to basically blend at half speed for like 2 seconds, and then at full speed for the remaining 28 seconds to match when I would press the blend button on the TRIBEST, because that's pretty much what that does as well. So then I could have even head-to-head tests by one button touch. In addition, the KUVINGS also has the start-stop button should you want to control it manually right here. It also has a pulse button that you can just hold down and pulse it. It also has an up and down button. So instead of using a rotary dial, you have speed up and speed down. It'll tell you the speed on the display, and you can go from as low as 7% all the way up to 100%. And then they have a button here for the automatic open and close of the lid, and another button here to turn on the vacuum or turn off the vacuum. So I always have the vacuum button on, and you can only press the vacuum button once you have the container in place. So for usability, my personal opinion is I like the KUVINGS. The KUVINGS makes it a lot easier. When I'm blending in the KUVINGS at home, I usually just press like button number 5. And my button number 5 is normally programmed to run about 50 seconds. So that blends up all my different smoothies and everything I need with just one touch. I think the preset original number 1 button might run for 25 seconds. And in my original unboxing video, that seemed to do an amazing job in literally just 25 seconds of blending with the KUVINGS to get most tasks done without a problem. Once again, due to the smaller carafe, the asymmetrical container, and the unique blade design. Alright guys, up next, let's go ahead and measure these 2 machines so you guys can figure out how tall they are and how big they are, how much space they'll take on your counter. These are not small blenders by any means. So the KUVINGS to the top is approximately, I'd say 19 and a half up to the top right here. And then the depth is approximately 11 inches. And then we got the width at the widest point here. It's about 9 inches, right? So that's a pretty big unit. Meanwhile, the Dynapro, if we look at it, that's a little bit shorter. That's about 18 and a quarter inch. And then the depth is actually about, I'd say 9.5 because it flares out a little bit. One direction, and the other direction pretty much about the same, 9.5 as well. So both these take a really wide footprint. They're both taller than maybe many kitchen cabinet counters, and actually that's one of the caveats I have about, you know, I have like a kind of like an alleyway kind of kitchen, so I don't have like a center island where this would be perfect on, so I have to like kind of space this out at the end of the counter so that this when it comes up, it could actually clear and, you know, raise up all the way. So, you know, that's not my favorite. This one is definitely larger. Of course, for commercial space, the size doesn't really matter, but I know for some of you guys that are homeowners, you may want to consider the size. All right, next up, let's go ahead and do a sound test comparison to see which one is louder. And I don't have to be a rocket scientist to tell you, which I'm not, that the Dynapro is going to be louder because there's no sound enclosure. We are running it empty, and I'll give you fair warning that running it empty will be a lot louder than running it with some liquid in there, but I am doing this purposely because it's the loudest it will ever get, all right? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and press the blend button on the Dynapro, and we got the sound meter here. I'll put like, I don't know, 6 inches away to see how loud it actually is. And yeah, normally you'd probably want to wear hearing muffs, hearing protection. That's extremely loud, guys. It peaked out at 107, 108, so definitely get some of those like hearing muffs for like when you shoot guns, you know, to protect your ears when blending. And next up, we're going to basically put the KUVINGS with button number 5 on the high speed as well. Alright guys, so I'm getting about 84 to 85 decibels. So that's 20 decibels quieter, guys. So if you value your hearing and you don't want to put on the hearing muffs, right? Definitely, even at high speed, right? The KUVINGS is 20 decibels quieter. That is significantly quieter, guys. And once again, the difference the sound enclosure makes, but not just the sound enclosure, also, of course, the thicker plastic on the carafe. Of course, both of the machines have like a rubber pad to help do some sound dampening. But as you guys can see, the sound test is the sound test, and the Dynapro definitely much louder. That's why I said that if you guys are looking for a front of the house vacuum blender, the KUVINGS CB1000 is the way to go because it is much quieter and once again, fully automatic. So next up, let's go ahead and test the vacuum pumps on each machine. Number 1, we're testing how long it takes to vacuum, how long you'll be waiting in addition to blending your smoothie. Number 2, the strength of the vacuum pump in each of the machines, or the vacuum pumps. And number 3, the actual real world test of the vacuum pumps with how much oxygen is removed out of each of the containers. So first up, we're going to go ahead and test the KUVINGS on how long it takes to pull a vacuum. So we're going to go ahead and press start and press number 4 simultaneously. 1, 2, 3. All right, it's already pumping down. It's counting on the KUVINGS screen to like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So it's 15 seconds on my timer and on the KUVINGS screen. We'll stop that, reset it. So 15 seconds, you know, is an amazing speed. You know, the KUVINGS will save you time for sure, because it's one of the quickest vacuums out there. Next up, let's go ahead and test the Dynapro. So we're testing the pump, you know, on the Dynapro. We're gonna go ahead and put it on top of the carafe. We're gonna press the button and the start button at the same time. This pump will automatically detect when it's achieved the maximum vacuum that it can pull, and then cut off, and then we'll stop the timer. All right, 1, 2, 3, go. Now as the Dynapro is pumping, you'll see the little flap on the top of the carafe kind of moving up and down. This is letting you know that oxygen is being evacuated out of the container. Also want you guys to know that while this did work in 15 seconds, we're already past that. You know, this carafe is a lot smaller, this carafe is a lot larger, and this, you know, may take longer or shorter depending on how much you fill the carafe. If you fill the carafe to here, then the air evacuated is only this much. It's going to be a lot shorter. Anyways, let's come back at you when the TRIBEST Dynapro has achieved the full vacuum. All right, stop. All right, the TRIBEST just shut off, so it's at 1 minute and 23 seconds. So literally it took over a minute longer to pull a vacuum. Now, how much vacuum did it pull? That's a good question, because that's what we're testing next. But nonetheless, every time you blend, you're gonna have to manually put on the vacuum, take off the vacuum when you're done, and once again on the KUVINGS, press the button, it vacuums in 15 seconds, and then it's off the blending. So this is gonna save you guys a lot of time. And once again, if you guys are using this in a commercial establishment, front of house, right? This is saving you guys time. You guys could make more smoothies in that same amount of hour using this machine, because it vacuums literally 5 times faster, which ain't no joke. All right, guys, so now I want to go ahead and do just a raw test of how powerful the vacuum pump is. This does not necessarily affect on how much oxygen will be pulled out, but this will tell us how powerful the vacuum pump is. I have a test rig here, which basically has a fluid-filled vacuum meter, oil-filled vacuum meter. And what happens is this is a chamber with a little valve on here. So basically, the vacuum pumps in each of the machines will come on to vacuum out the small chamber here, and then this meter will register the maximum amount of vacuum that it pulled out of this small chamber. This is going to be higher than the actual vacuum that is pulled out of the carafe. And I'm not the scientist to know exactly why, but basically, first we're going to go ahead and test the Dynapro, which will be really easy because we just put the pump on top of this test rig. We press the button, and you can instantly see the meter kind of going up, and the meter will max out. The pump senses that it's not going to get any more vacuum, and it shuts off. We could go ahead and then take a look at the meter, and if we look at the meter is reading approximately 20.5 on this meter, just using this test rig. So 20.5 was the maximum. Then we're going to go ahead and reset the test rig, let all the oxygen back in, and let this zero back out. Now on the KUVINGS, this is not going to be so straightforward because the vacuum is built into the bottom, and I don't have a way easily to tap into that. So basically we're just going to go ahead and take the vacuum control module out. This is a piece on top of the KUVINGS that actually prevents liquid from going back down into the vacuum pump. They do want you to remove this every once in a while, take it apart and clean it. That being said, this is not advised by KUVINGS that you test it this way, but this is what I need to do to give you guys a test. This is how I originally tested the KUVINGS in my original video down below, where I test all the major vacuum blenders with this test rig set up to show you guys what it can pull. And in that test, actually the KUVINGS beat the other blenders out there, so maybe it'll do as well this time. So I need this kind of adapter thing because I need to kind of seal up the port here where the vacuum comes out, and then put it on while I'm holding this to here so we don't have any leaks. So this is going to be a little bit of a task here to do. All right, so we're going to go ahead and press the button number 4, which I have just as a vacuum mode, and then just set this test rig up on top and hold it all tight. Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, so it basically aired out because it achieved full vacuum, or as much as I could get. It did move the meter, and you guys could see the meter on there. The maximum vacuum pressure looks like to be about 21, 22, 23. About 23.5 is what I'm seeing on the meter. So just raw power of the vacuum pump is that the KUVINGS vacuum pump is more powerful than the Dynapro. The KUVINGS has multiple vacuum pumps. Of course, it is operated through the plug-in wall versus the AA batteries. That being said, you know, testing it this way is great because we could see like the power, you know, when removing vacuum out of a small space. But what really counts is how much oxygen is actually removed in each container when you actually use the built-in vacuum pump or the external vacuum pump. So for that, I have an upgraded meter here that I've used to test many different vacuum pumps. You could buy this little meter if you guys want to have your own meter. Link down below to my Amazon shop, and link down below on how to use this meter, where I use it to test cheap food-saving vacuum pumps from mason jars. Basically, you're going to want to cap off one end, leave one end open. You're going to go ahead and then turn it on, and then you're going to want to go ahead and hit the diff button. That'll put you into the differential mode to measure the difference between the sealed and the open. inside the container. So we got to actually put this KUVINGS back together, open this up, take off the jar, and we're just going to go ahead and put this in the jar. And once again, don't try this at home. You may end up blending up this meter if you don't know what you're doing, because I programmed button number 4 to turn on the vacuum pump only and then not blend at all. So if I hit any other button, my meter will get toasted. All right, make sure our vacuum is on. We're going to go ahead and close the lid, and my meter's in there, and we're just going to go ahead and press button 4. It's vacuuming for 15 seconds, which is amazing. Once again, it has the shortest vacuum cycle of any vacuum blender out there. And it vacuum blends in literally 15 seconds. And then we can see what it actually gets up to. So actually, it looks like we're up to, we peaked out at 62. Oh, and I just released the vacuum, so now we lost it. But anyways, we peaked out at 62 on my meter, which basically means it removes 62% of the oxygen inside the carafe. All right, next up, let's go ahead and take out the meter. We'll turn it off, turn it on, and reset it. We're going to then go ahead and put it in the Dynapro. We're going to go ahead and put the lid on. And actually, we don't need it even on top of the carafe. And then we're just going to go ahead and put the vacuum pump on and press the start button. And we're going to let this vacuum, once again, took 15 seconds to vacuum down to 62. Let's see how long it takes the TRIBEST to vacuum and how high or how much oxygen it is removing out of the TRIBEST Dynapro commercial vacuum blender. Once again, it's probably going to take about 1 minute and 15. All right, guys, so the TRIBEST pump just shut off, and check it out. This is quite interesting. I don't know if you guys can see in there. You guys see that? Anyways, if we look at this, it looks like it removed, well, it peaked out at 62. Now we're like at 61. So basically, both these machines appeared in this test, right, to remove about the same amount of oxygen out of the carafe. Although when we tested it with the other tester, you know, the KUVINGS did seem to have a more powerful, you know, vacuum pump. That being said, there are settings in the KUVINGS to set the vacuum pressure, I think from 600 to 750. They don't tell you exactly what that means. Of course, mine is set to 750 to max it out. All right. So yeah, so in this test, basically, for all practical purposes, each one of these machines remove this same amount of vacuum. You know, of course, with the TRIBEST, maybe if I changed these batteries out and had brand new fresh set of batteries, maybe it could get more air out. More vacuum, but once again, you know, this is just like real world. You know, I don't use this machine too much these days, so these batteries are fairly fresh, but I just want to give you guys actually a fair and honest comparison of what really happened. So in this test, which one pulled more vacuum? I mean, they're both about the same during this test, but I think in previous tests, once again, I used that other tester. It showed that the KUVINGS was a little bit better. That being said, you know, I've seen numbers on this as high as like 70 or so for like other vacuum blenders out there. So, you know, I would hope that both these, you know, in other tests can get higher. That being said, also too, what's going to affect this test also is your altitude, where you are in the world. If you're up in Denver, right, you have a higher altitude, you will not be extracting as much oxygen because there's just less oxygen to extract at a higher elevation. If you're closer to sea level, living on the beach somewhere, right, you're going to get a higher number and more oxygen removal. So these are my tests today in the current state of things with using the same exact testers. So yeah, that's the honest truth on that. All right, guys, so basically up to this point, my personal opinion on both these machines, the KUVINGS is kind of taking it. Aside from the carafe size that wins on the Dynapro, easier to clean, pulls a faster vacuum. They both pull the same vacuum in this test that I just tried in front of you guys. I guess the next step is let's go ahead and do some real world testing to see which one of these machines actually performs better when blending up the exact same item. All right, guys, so now for the first test, we're basically going to blend up or grind up flax seeds and oatmeal. Normally I used to grind just flax seeds alone, but they would tend to gum up and stick to the sides of the container and then not get totally blended up, so then that wouldn't lead to a fair comparison. But now when I add oats, the oats kind of like, you know, takes away some of the oiliness and then allows the flax to get fully ground up. And when I make a lot of things with flax, I just put the ground oats in there too these days. So we have even amounts that I weighed out, about 2 ounces of each in each of these little containers. We're going to go ahead and blend up under vacuum in each of the blenders. And then we're just basically going to put the residue, the blended up results through a sieve to see which one has more residue. All right. So I guess the first step is to put the flax and oatmeal into each of the blenders. And of course on the KUVINGS it's nice because it automatically opens up for you. You could go ahead and then take off the lid and then dump in the flax seeds and the oats. And then I'll do the same thing over on the Dynapro. Then on the Dynapro, it's more of a manual situation. We got to put the lid on. We got to put the vacuum pump on and press the button on the vacuum pump. And then over on the KUVINGS, all we got to do is put the lid on. And then we just got to actually press one button on the KUVINGS to get it go. All right, guys, so we're ready to blend. And I want to show you guys the whole blending process and how long it takes. On the KUVINGS, it's literally a one-step process. You press the button number 5. The button number 5 will basically vacuum and then blend for 30 seconds on high. And on the Dynapro, right, I could press the blend button, but then that's going to blend for 30 seconds, pretty much on high, but I also have to do the vacuum pump. So I want to show you guys the overall process of how long it takes in each vacuum blender. So we're going to hit start. We'll press the 5 button here and the pump on button here. 1, 2, 3, go. All right, the lid shuts automatically. The multiple pumps come on to suck a vacuum in 15 seconds. Meanwhile, the Dynapro is just starting to suck the vacuum out of the carafe. It will probably take about a minute and 15 seconds or so. Meanwhile, on the KUVINGS, it's already starting to grind up. Fully automatic, under vacuum, so that you don't have to. All right, and before we know it, KUVINGS lets off the vacuum and even lifts the lid to let you know it's ready. You can just grab your smoothie and go, especially in a commercial juice bar. Really the way to go on this, guys. And we're already done under a minute or so to do that. Meanwhile, the TRIBEST Dynapro, the vacuum pump, is still running, and I did not even get to blend yet, and this is going to be loud when I turn it on. So I'm going to literally evacuate the room. All right, now the Dynapro pump has shut off. Now we can press the blend button once. All right, guys, so the Dynapro just shut off, and we're going to hit the stop. So it took literally an additional minute and 15 seconds approximately to basically do the same job in the Dynapro. So once again, you know, this is where the KUVINGS will save you time. One button, you turn it on, it vacuums, it blends, it lifts up, it's very quiet. This is 20 decibels louder and takes over double the amount of time, all right? So now let's go ahead and check the results. All right, first up, let's go ahead and check out the KUVINGS. We'll tap this down to try to get all the flax out. Some of it's sticking to the sides, so we're just going to go ahead and kind of try to get this out too. Scrape all the sides down and pour it into our sieve. All right, guys, so we got it all scooped in the sieve. We do have some pieces that are kind of stuck together, so I'm going to kind of like break it up into smaller pieces. And we're basically just going to go ahead and shake this down. Get it to go through the sieve to see how many bits are left in the sieve. Alright, guys, you can see we have some bits of flax and oats still left in the sieve. Don't mean nothing until we got a comparison. So on the Dynapro, we do need to let out the vacuum, so we need to basically pull the little plug at the top, let the air back in. Once again, this happens fully automatic on the KUVINGS. Then we need to lift up the lid. And then on the lid, we have some stuff stuck on the lid, so I'm going to try to, you know, get this back into the carafe. I did run this for 30 seconds. I probably could have ran it for maybe 15. And we might have got a little bit less sticking, because as the flax gets ground up further, then the oils tend to come out, then it starts to stick. So there's like a spot where you kind of just want to end it and not go too far. So I maybe went a tad bit longer, but I did want to have an even comparison. You guys can see a lot of this is still sticking to the sides. And when it does stick to the sides, once again, if there's particles that get stuck to the sides, then that stuff is not getting ground. Once again, you know, this wider carafe is definitely not as ideal, in my opinion, for, you know, grinding large C's. But, you know, once again, let's see how the Dynapro did. All right, so we got all this flax powder coming out of the Dynapro. All right, guys, so we got the flax powder in the Dynapro. Once again, I'm just going to go ahead, because we got clumps, I'm going to just try to break up the clumps and then get all the powder through the sieve. And we're going to shake this down. All right, guys, so this is how much is left in the Dynapro. This is how much left is in the KUVINGS. Now, if I just eyeball it, definitely the Dynapro has more, but I want to be objective, so we're just going to go ahead and get out my scale here. Got it tiered out. Now we're going to go ahead and test the residue from the Dynapro that did not get blended. Not bad. Looks like 2.6 grams. That's not much at all. 0.6. We're zeroed out again. And on the KUVINGS, 1.4. So that's almost half as much residue left in the KUVINGS, blended for the same amount of time, and it took like 1 minute and 15 seconds less, or like basically half as much residue and about half the amount of time, and it's a much more automatic operation. You guys can, so you can see, right, if you have the money, the KUVINGS definitely the way to go. Made the process so much simpler, and yes, it even did a better job. All right, next up, let's go ahead, take a look at these. I'm just gonna go ahead. Both are literally like a powder. This one's like a powder, and this one's like a powder. I can't say one is significantly different or worse than the other. They all went through the sieve. If I had to say one's a little bit more fine than the other one, they're so freaking close, but I'm about to say the KUVINGS is a little bit finer, because if you just like look at the color, it looks to be a little bit lighter in color to me. Maybe that's because it's like, more fractionated. But they both did the great job. Either one left very little residue in through the sieve, showing me that both these machines blended to a very fine powder. All right, guys, so clearly the KUVINGS took that last test. Next test is we're going to go ahead and simulate a smoothie test. In a smoothie, normally you'd blend things like nuts, maybe some seeds, maybe some leafy greens. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to blend some harder to blend items that I blended in the past that may leave fragments in your smoothie. I'm only going to blend for 30 seconds to show you guys the power and what these machines can do in 30 seconds. But be aware, if you guys run these machines for longer, the longer you run them, the more ground down you can get, the items you're putting in there. So if, there's too much texture in there at 30 seconds, which for me would be fine, because I found that over time, running the KUVINGS for 30 seconds is like running other blenders longer. You could always run it longer. So what we're going to do today is we got 500 milliliters of water that we're going to go ahead and pour in to each of the blenders. So that's a little bit over 1 cup of water. The most important thing to remember is that, vacuum blenders, except for the backspin vacuum blender, require liquid to work, right? You want to have enough liquid, but not too much liquid. If you fill the whole container up and put 5 nuts in there, right? There's so much water in there, the nuts are not going to hit that water that often. So it's always good to, tailor your smoothie with just enough liquid, not too much, not too less, to get the exact results. So in this case, we're just using 1 cup of water. And then we have 3 collared leaves. These were weighed out to be the even weights on both. We're just going to go ahead and rip them apart. And once again, there's the stems on here that tend to be a little bit thicker, because I really want to see how these blenders will do that. So we rip them in half twice. Once again, rip it in half once, and then rip it in half twice, and then drop it in. And then all we have is we have 10 almonds going in. Almonds tend to be a little bit harder nut. Macadamia nuts and cashews are easier to blend. They're softer nuts. But I find that the almonds usually will leave some fragments. One of the stories I'll tell you guys, before the Dynapro improved their blades, I would use it a lot and make like blended dressings with like nuts and some juice, for example, like orange juice, and I'd find always bits of the nuts. That being said, they did improve the blade design by making it even longer, and I found it works even better. That being said, let's see how good it blends. So I think in this case, to save you guys some time, we're just going to go ahead and start vacuuming now. And then we're going to also, basically start at the same time so the blenders can pretty much finish at the same time, because we know the Dynapro will just basically take about 1 minute and 15 seconds longer due to the vacuum pump runs a lot slower than the KUVINGS. All right, now that the Dynapro is under full vacuum, now we're just going to go ahead and press the blend button once, And we're going to press the automatic number 5 button, which will run both blenders for approximately 30 seconds to see how these machines perform. All right, 1, 2, 3, go! All right, guys, so both blenders finished. The Kuvings, of course, automatically released the vacuum and put the top up. And the Dynapro just basically finished. So then the Dynapro, once again, manual process. You need to let the release go, let the air back in. And then as you're holding this up, you need to go ahead and I would basically hold down this and then lift up on this to lift it out. And then we're going to go ahead and scrape down try to get as much residue scraped down from the lid as possible. The stuff on the lid basically didn't get blended. Once again, because of the bigger jar and less liquid in the Dynapro, you know, there's a lot of things got stuck to the side that then didn't drop back down. You know, so for this reason, for those of you guys that don't want to blend large amounts, I would definitely say that the Kuvings is a lot better because of that smaller carafe. So, you know, generally, I kind of like the smaller carafe myself these days. So once again, we're just going to go ahead and try to scoop all the stuff off the walls down because technically that stuff did not get blended. And we'll do the same thing on the Kuvings as well. All right, let's pour this through the sieve and see what is left. All right, next up on the Kuvings, let's go ahead and take that off. Take the top off, and the top, you know, a little bit more nooks and crannies, but there's a little bit less on the top from the get-go to even scrape down. And then scraping down the sides of the Kuvings, much easier than on the Dynapro, because I can just basically just go around the whole container all at once. And let's just go ahead and pour this. All right, next up, let's go ahead and shake down these sieves to see what we're left with. All right, guys, so I'm trying to scrape through the pulp. There's a lot of fine pulp that made a pulp patty, but then, you know, some of it is so fine it's still kind of going through the sieve, and then there are pieces that are not going through the sieve, right? So instead of just using the hand tap, I'm basically pressing it through, and you guys can see some of it's going through the sieve and some isn't. I'm most interested in the things that are not going through the sieve to see how much particulate was still left rather large. So I think I'm getting down to the end of the particulate in the Kuvings, and we're left pretty much with that much, which is not a whole lot. Next up, we're starting with a lot more pulp in the Dynapro, showing me that it just, for the same blend time, once again 30 seconds, it did not blend as well as the Kuvings. And so now we're going to basically scrape this stuff through and see how much we got left. Alright guys, so after scraping it through, it looks like we have a lot of stuff that's scraped through, so that made like a thicker smoothie. I mean, if you just want better ground in the first place, definitely the Kuvings ground up to a finer consistency, and when I was scraping it down, it kind of went through the sieve a lot easier, and the Dynapro definitely went through the sieve a little bit more difficult with larger pieces, but a lot of those larger pieces I still was able to get through the sieve. Next up, let's go ahead and weigh the results of what is left. All the big particles that actually didn't get put through the sieve. All right, so we're at 0 on the scale. First up, let's go ahead and measure the Dynapro. So it looks like we got 5.9 grams on the Dynapro. Let's go ahead and tear this back out to 0. And then we're going to go ahead and measure the Kuvings. And on the Kuvings, we got 3.1 grams. So once again, guys, similar results as the flax grinding, right? There's about half as much residue in the Kuvings, and plus in this test I could clearly see that the Kuvings ground down to a finer particle size. So if, you know, the fineness of the grind is very important to you, then you could see clearly the Kuvings is the winner. Alright guys, so currently to date, the Kuvings is taking the lead. Basically it blends to a finer consistency, leaves less particles in like half the time as the Dynapro. Of course, the major advantage of the Dynapro is a longer warranty, and of course, right now during the 30% off promotion, it's like half the price of the Kuvings. Alright, so next up, we're going to go ahead and do the final torture test to see which of these machines is really superior. So we have basically about 8.8 fluid ounces of coconut water with a little bit of coconut meat in there. And then we have about 253 grams of frozen blackberries. And you guys know blackberries have those hard seeds. So I really want to see which one of these blenders in 30 seconds. I mean, if we ran it longer, we could grind it up more. but in 30 seconds, which one of these blenders will grind up more of the seeds? So let's find out. So first up, let's go ahead and load up both blenders with the coconut water and the coconut meat. All right, next up, let's go ahead and dump even amounts of the frozen blackberries I literally just took out of my freezer just now, so they're pretty rock hard to see what's gonna happen. Next up, we could go ahead and put the lid on the KUVINGS, put the lid on the Dynapro, and of course on the Dynapro, we have to do the manual vacuum, which takes an additional minute and 15 seconds approximately. So we're gonna come back at you when it's fully vacuumed, then we're just gonna go ahead and start the process to show you guys the whole blending process. All right guys, so the Dynapro is done vacuuming. Next step is we're just gonna go ahead and hit the blend button, run it for 30 seconds, and on the KUVINGS, hit the number 5 button, which is the same basically cycle. That being said, that's gonna start blending. This is gonna vacuum and then blend, so it's gonna take a little bit longer. 1, 2, 3, go. All right guys, so both blenders have finished, and I'm really interested to see which one put more basically grit into the smoothie. So once again, on the Dynapro, we need to release the vacuum, and then we need to basically lift up the lid. There's not a lot of residue on the lid since we had more liquid in there this time. And this is actually a fairly nice and thick smoothie. Check it out. Once again, this is frozen. Going right through. Oh, I am seeing some bits coming out, guys. Once again, you know, we have a bigger blade, and there's space between the blade, and as things run down, it doesn't always hit the blade, is what I found. So, you know, running it longer would definitely solve this. But once again, you know, we're blending for a short amount of time, 30 seconds, to see what's going to happen in 30 seconds in both blenders. And then I'm scraping out the Dynapro, and once again, these flutes are getting in my way. Blackberries are kind of expensive, so I want to not leave any smoothie in the jar. All right, we got that as clean as I could. Next up, let's go ahead and check out the KUVINGS. And the KUVINGS definitely has a lot more residue on the lid of the jar for sure. So we're going to go ahead and scrape this out here. All right, let's go ahead and pour out the KUVINGS after I scrape down the sides of the jar. Check it out. It's a nice consistency. Definitely not seeing any large chunks like I did in the Dynapro. But once again, this is the third test, guys. You know, if the previous 2 tests are any indicator, basically the KUVINGS is also going to take this. But, you know, let's see what happens. All right, that jar was a lot easier to scrape down than the Dynapro for sure. All right. Oh, and then just running it through the strainer without, like, tapping it down, you could see the Dynapro has a lot more material that just didn't even go through at first. So let's go ahead and shake this down and see what we have left. As you guys can see, it's coming through. And in this case, I'm not going to use the spatula to basically push anything in, because I just want to see what makes it through, because this is rather liquidy already. All right, you can see on the KUVINGS we have that much left. And let's go ahead and tap down the Dynapro. So as you can see, the Dynapro, it's not basically coming down as easily, meaning that there's a lot more larger pieces. It didn't get broken down as much. So we're going to go ahead and tap this down fairly significantly to get all the smoothie through the sieve, which it is finally doing. All right, guys, so I'm tapping and tapping. Once again, I'm not pushing anything through the sieve at this point, because I want to just see what's left as I tap it down and what I could get through without using it and pushing stuff through. But basically, this is the difference, guys. Look at that. You guys see the difference on that? It's like pretty huge. It's like maybe 1/3, but let's find out for sure by weighing it. All right, guys, as you can see, I got the scale zeroed out, and I think first we're going to go ahead and check out the Dynapro. Got everything tapped out on there. And look. All right, as you guys can see, the scale is finally settled. We're on 17.0 grams that actually didn't make it through the sieve. All right, next up, let's go ahead and tear this out from 17. See what we got here. Make sure we're teared out. Yep. And adding the KUVINGS, 6.6. Guys, so once again, that's about 1/3 less, right, material that the Kuvings left in the sieve that did not go through the sieve. The Dynapro literally had almost 3 times more. 17 versus like 6.5, 6.6, whatever we had. So you guys just saw all the objective tests I did with grinding and showing you guys what was left in the sieves, and in all cases, the Kuvings won. But now I want to give you my subjective test, because I'm going to go ahead and taste test these, not letting my Blackberries or my coconut water go to waste. So this is the smoothness of the Kuvings. Taste test this. All right, so once again, you know, I am tasting the seeds that have been ground up into small pieces that actually did end up going through the sieve. They don't bother me, but if you have diverticulitis, then definitely you want to sieve it more. Or just maybe use blueberries instead. All right, so that was pretty good. Next up, let's go ahead and try the Dynapro taste test. Interesting. All right, so here's what I'll say. This one's a lot smoother. You're thinking, wait, John, how is this smoother? And I was thinking that too. How is this smoother? This is smoother because it didn't grind up the seeds. It left it actually in the pulp that actually didn't go through the sieve, so that there's less seeds in here that didn't get ground up, right? So this one technically is smoother. So maybe if you want to blend it up and then sieve it out, then you're sieving out all the seeds because it actually didn't get ground up into fine pieces, which could be a good thing. Because you're not swallowing as much seeds. And when I swallow this one, because the seeds were ground up, now our bodies have access, and it made the nutrients in those seeds more bioavailable, including some fats that actually improve and increase the bioavailability of some of the fat-soluble vitamins in the smoothie. Yeah, definitely more texture and gritty. So there you have it, right? Which one would you prefer? Would you prefer a little bit more grit in there that grinded up the seeds so you could swallow them and get the nutrition out? Or do you actually not want the seeds in there in the first place, and you're fine with sieving it and then taking the seeds away and then drinking this version that's a lot more smooth because the seeds were not ground up? Wow. I really have fun doing these demos for you guys to show you guys which blenders and juicers are the best by doing head-to-head comparisons, right? It takes me a lot of time to prepare for, execute, buy the ingredients, do these videos, get the videos edited, all this stuff. So, you know, I would definitely appreciate if you guys use my coupon codes that allows me to continue to do this work. You know, if I've helped you out so you could figure out the right machine, because nobody else is going this deep. A lot of influencers will say, oh, get this one or get that one. They won't have any proof aside from just their words. Words are cheap, man. So many people are just saying things in our new world that are just totally not true. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to share with you guys the truth about what happens when you blend the exact same ingredients, give you guys my objective review, but more importantly, subjective review as well, so you guys can find the right machine for you. So at the end of this episode, I have to declare the winner of this episode, and I would be crazy to not declare the winner. The Kuvings, it basically won in every single category except the price and the warranty, straight up. It ground to a better texture. 2 to 3 times less particles were left in the sieve after straining it out, right? So that means everything was ground down to a finer consistency, so now more nutrients are available to you. It also vacuumed in 15 seconds, which is about 5 times faster, because this took 1 minute and 15 seconds, like basically a whole extra minute, and this took 15 seconds for about the equivalent amount of vacuum removed. In addition, this was a lot easier to use, right? You don't have to pull the plug up and then lift up the lid at the same time. Right now it's under vacuum lock. I mean, I could try to pull this, and if I just kept pulling, it'd pop off, but then I might get some of the blackberry juice all over me. You know, so this basically auto puts the vacuum on, releases the vacuum, and can even lift up the lid for you to let you know it's done. It's also 20 decibels, a lot quieter, guys. So, I mean, what I would tell you guys is, I know this is an expensive item. It's normally $2,000, right? But right now, it's 30% off. Now is completely the time to take advantage of the literally spring Black Friday sale. going on only until May 11th to get the world's best vacuum commercial blender on the market. Whether you use it at home like I do, whether you want to use it in a commercial juice bar, smoothie bar, restaurant, right? This is the machine to get. It blends more quickly due to the special blade design and asymmetrical bottom. It grinds to a finer consistency in the same amount of time. And let's not mention, if we blend even longer, we could get even a finer blend. These were only 30-second blends, which is nothing. So we got 30 seconds on the blend, 15 seconds on the vacuum, and boom, most things you're going to blend at home could be done in as little as 45 seconds. The KUVINGS vacuum blender is clearly the best performance vacuum blender commercial that I've tested to date and the one to go for. And right now you could save $300 off. That's literally 1/3 off. Use that coupon code DJ30 at KUVINGSUSA.com. I don't want you guys to miss out on this amazing deal. You'll save $600, and with that $600, you can actually buy a Dynapro for a friend. Actually, you could save 10% off on the Dynapro right now with the coupon code DJ at TRIBEST.com. Once again, links are down below. The links and the coupon code support me, guys. So make sure you guys use the links and coupon codes. If I've helped you out, help me out by using that coupon code. Not only will you guys get the lowest price guaranteed, but also each of the manufacturers will share with me a small portion of the sale so I can continue to buy my ingredients, spend my time to make these videos, to do all the cleaning, because I do all this stuff myself, and then have my amazing video editor edit this so I could get this out and tell the truth about the machines with just telling you guys like it is. I mean, each machine has their own pros and cons. The only reason why the KUVINGS wouldn't win, if you are conscious and really important and you don't have that much money, then of course the TRIBEST is an amazing deal because you cannot beat the 15-year warranty. Yes, the performance was not as good, but that warranty, 15 years on the entire machine, literally cannot be beat. So if you're willing to take a performance hit, but you want that stability, that warranty, and of course spend less money than the KUVINGS, then the TRIBEST could definitely work for you. Of course, if you have a large family, you don't want to make multiple small batches in the KUVINGS, you can make larger batches with the TRIBEST, right? And if you're scared that the vacuum pump might go out in the KUVINGS, mine hasn't had a problem. Been using it since 2023. I actually haven't had to send this in for any repairs since 2023. I've been using it straight, so it's pretty dependable to me. And KUVINGS only always improves their products over time as they see things come up. The other factor that makes the Dynapro better is that actually you can use an accessory vacuum pump. I didn't talk about this earlier. I wanted to, but I forgot, but I'll show you guys right now. It pulled about 62% of the oxygen out, but if you get this adapter, which is made by the Pure company, you could basically put this adapter inside the little valve port here, and then this adapts your Dynapro to work with the Pure MVP pump. You can now put the Pure MVP pump on here and now manually pump. So what you would do is you would basically use this to pump out to like 62, and then you could use this pump then to pump out to maybe like 80% of the oxygen removed, which is, in this case, more powerful than the KUVINGS that removes about 62% of the oxygen. On the KUVINGS, you cannot use any accessory vacuum pumps, or I haven't figured out a way to do that at this point, but TRIBEST makes it easy to do that. If the most oxygen removal is most important, actually, this is the vacuum blender that you can remove the most oxygen because you can do it manually with the Pure MVP. Links down below to my videos on the Pure MVP if you're not familiar with it. For those of you guys that don't care about the vacuum, just want a fully automated process, then of course the KUVINGS is the way to go. So of course, each one of these machines have their own pros and cons, and I make these episodes for you guys to show you guys the truth about the machines. What's good, what's bad. I mean, basically, once again, summing it up, Dynapro has the price in its favor, commercial NSF 15-year warranty for home use, 3-year warranty on the entire machine for commercial use, right? The KUVINGS, aside from the price and the warranty, it basically takes the cake in every other situation. The vacuum is faster, it blends more quickly, it grinds finer, all right? If you've been frustrated with your current vacuum blender, or even more importantly, non-vacuum blender, now is a time to make an investment in your health. I know a lot of you guys buy expensive ingredients like blackberries or wild blueberries or leafy greens, all the prices are going up in the stores. And I'm glad to say that since the CB1000 was released in 2023 at $19.99, the price hasn't changed despite the increased tariffs, right? So now you can make a one-time investment in the KUVINGS and you can literally double or triple the nutrition out of the blueberries or the leafy greens or other highly nutritious fruits and vegetables that you blend up in your blender, because now you're going to be blending under vacuum. And of course, you're going to miss out on the bloating you're going to get because you're not swallowing all that extra oxygen. And of course, there's a better flavor and texture. Things are going to taste a lot stronger because that's the nutrition you're tasting that is not being oxidized out with traditional blenders. And now is the time to buy. 30% off. Savings don't get this good again till Black Friday. So once again, coupon code DJ30 at KUVINGS USA. Links are down below. Now, final words of wisdom I'd like to share is that, you know, if you guys are going to invest in a good vacuum blender and then you guys are going to vacuum seal your smoothies and whatnot, make sure you invest in the Pure MVP. Like I've tested the vacuum blenders, I've tested all the major vacuum pumps out there. The Pure MVP is the best vacuum pump. I'll put a link down below, bit.ly/Pure MVP DJ5 for a $5 off coupon. And when you buy the kit, I recommend you also get the free shipping. And I'll put links down below to my videos on the Pure MVP so you guys can learn more about that. So the final words of wisdom is that success leaves clues, guys. The CB1000 is the blender I use in my kitchen. I don't use any other blender aside from when I'm doing demos like this, because I've proven to myself by using many blenders over the years, including Blendtec and Vitamix, for the majority of the 31 years I've been eating fresh fruit and vegetable dominated diet, right? The KUVINGS CB1000 is clearly superior because it is a lot faster. The uneven bottom blends more quickly, and that's what I use. And I've been testing it since it came out in 2023. Link down below to my original unboxing videos. Those other videos that I made in the past about the CB1000, as well as the, video on why it is my favorite blender until something comes out better. Yes, there's some downfalls, some shortfalls, like, the price and the warranty. But other than that, it's the top of the game. I hope that in the future they could maybe even increase the amount of vacuum that it pulls to make it even better. So if you guys enjoyed this long episode where I compared these two commercial blenders side by side, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. That'll encourage me to make more videos like this in the future where I compare machines side by side and dive deep to show you guys the truth about the machines. That is so important to me, to show the truth about things when there's so many companies out there just spattering off things and people are just saying things, and I can't dispel all the myths out there in the world, but I can dispel the myths about the equipment that I sell, including the vacuum blenders and the juicers that I'm the #1 world's expert in. So yeah, thumbs this video up, and more importantly, share this with other people that are looking for a blender, especially right now during the promotion, April 27th to May 11th, for the lowest price until Black Friday on the KUVINGS CB1000. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you miss out on my new and upcoming episodes. I've coming in 5-7 days. You know show up what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel. Make sure you click the little bell so you get notified as many videos come out. And finally, be sure to check past episodes. Past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 900 episodes at this time on this channel dedicated to you guys all about the different equipment, appliances, including juicers, vacuum blenders, and other appliances that allow you to process your fruits and vegetables and maintain the highest level of nutrition. I'll put links down below to my favorite videos I made in the past with the KUVINGS CB1000 as well as the Dynapro vacuum blender. So with that, my name is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for YouTube visitors.